이번 청주에서는 남녀 고등학생 2명이 아파트 옥상에서 투신해 자살하는 사건이 있었습니다. 경찰은 이들의 부모 등을 불러 정확한 사인을 조사하고 있습니다. 김동호 기자입니다.
어젯밤 8시 50분쯤 청주시 신봉동 한 아파트 옥상에서 투신해 숨진 학생들은 청주 모 상고 1학년 이모군과 모 여상 1학년 강모양. 이들은 각자
I was barely a teenager the first time I tried to kill myself. If I knew then what I know now, well, it probably wouldn't have changed very much. And it probably wouldn't have changed very much because sometimes it doesn't matter what you know, what you feel just takes over. And there's so many ways like this that our perception becomes limited.
Ronnie, what a tragedy this is. Do police have any answers tonight?
Well, sadly, police and family members may never have all of their questions answered because that is the case too many times in a suicide. What we have been able to learn just a short time ago is that they have been able to track this gun. It was registered and a legal gun to a family member.
제가 군대에 갔을 때 아버지가 돌아가셨거든요. 군대 간 지 얼마 안 돼서. 근데 그 아버지가 자살로 돌아가셨어요. 그때부터였던 것 같아요. 그때 또 군대에서 워낙 또 혼자 있고 힘들고 뭐 주변에서 도와주는 사람도 많지 않았고 그래서 그때부터 많이 생각했던 것 같아요.
Backward over the railing. Can suicide really be a choice if it's the only choice available? We ask ourselves, how can it be the only choice? How can it even be a rational choice? And hopefully we wonder and we ask ourselves how we can help. Well, we can start to help by better appreciating that our mental health is contingent on this state and the flexibility of our perceptions. Whether we have a mental illness or not, how expanded or how contracted our perception becomes impacts the choices that we make. When I was standing on that bridge, my perception was so collapsed that I only had that one choice. Now, when we encounter the suicide of somebody else, we always seem to try to rationalize it. I hear it all the time. And I think that's because we're uncomfortable with feeling helpless and with not understanding. But since we know that our perceptions are created and continually informed by our biology, by our psychology, and by our society, we actually have many entry points for potentially helping and better understanding suicide. One way that we can help is to stop saying that people commit suicide. People commit rape. They commit murder, but nobody has committed suicide in this country since the early 1970s when suicide was decriminalized. And that's because suicide is a public health concern, not a criminal one. And it's a health concern, we know that. 90% of people who die by suicide have a diagnosable and treatable mental illness at the time of their death. And we know that with medication, with psychotherapy, these treatments work. So we need to make these treatments more available in an informed way to everybody. And we can be a part of that change, whether we have a mental illness or not, by taking charge of our own mental health. When we go in for our annual physical, we make a point of doing an annual psychological too. At both the individual and the societal levels, we can challenge our old ideas, like that old idea of saying that people commit suicide. When I first started out doing this, I used to beg for somebody to do something about suicide and stigma. Well, that's not acceptable anymore. So instead, I've started doing something. when a leading cause of death among new mothers in the first year after childbirth is suicide. That's not acceptable either. When our First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities are being ravaged by a suicide rate 5 to 6 times higher than the national average, that's not acceptable. When almost a quarter of 15 to 25-year-olds, who die at all, die by suicide, that is not acceptable. So like I said, when I used to plead for people to do something, and that's not acceptable either, well, you're here, and you're doing something already. Because you're changing the way you think, and that's what changes the world. So for those of you who might be thinking about suicide today, good. Keep thinking about it. And then start talking about it. And then start doing something about it too. And for those of you who might be contemplating suicide, I know that there's a hope somewhere deep inside you. I felt it too. Keep that hope alive. We need you. We need you to be leaders in this conversation, whether we are ready to have it or not. And trust me, if you're anything like me, it's this conversation that's going to keep you alive every single day, as though you've got just one more.